Historians are by definition experts on the past, but their craft also depends on innovation. That certainly applies to the work of our guest. One of his books, When in Boston, was actually the byproduct of a database. The next project is to give that database a permanent home where new generations of historians will keep it running. And we'd like to welcome Jim Vrabel. Thank you much for being with us, Jim.
Thanks, Chris. Good to be here.
To help people understand the database, talk about the book that I mentioned, because this is not like a conventional history book. Talk about it. It goes year to year, right?
Okay. It goes year to year, and actually it was the other way around. When in Boston was a timeline and an almanac. You could look things up by time and by a table of contents, look them up by subject, and it was kind of a complete history of Boston from before the founding fathers came to, I think it went up to 2004 when the Red Sox finally won the World Series after so many years. The database grew out of that. I have probably 10 or 20 times as much material as went into When in Boston. But instead of having the words sit on paper for people to kind of manipulate as best they could, the database allows people to search and sort and sift and change the order of things and create their own timelines, their own encyclopedias, whatever they want to look up, whatever they're interested in.
So this means you can just plop in somebody's name and you're thinking about one thing they were involved in, and then you find out they're involved in something else too.
You can search by person, and you just go down in seconds, go through the list of 40,000 entries and pull out that person's name and the significant moments that they were involved in events in Boston. You can do it by place, you can do it by category.
Well, what made you do this in the first place?
Well, I guess the idea that we don't do as good a job of preserving Boston history and disseminating Boston history as we like to think we do in Boston. We do a great job on revolutionary Boston and the Freedom Trail, but after that, things kind of drop off. And the idea that people want to know the facts. Some people don't want to know more than a few of the facts. Some people want to go further. But if we could provide those facts to people in an easy way for them to use, they'd be more interested in it.
Well, I'm also interested in how you found some of these facts to begin with. I'm imagining microfilms of old newspapers.
Old newspapers and books, no internet use. I'm kind of old school in that way. The only internet information I would take would be an official website by an institution with information about that institution. I figure they check their own facts. But it's mostly from books. And I've read hundreds or thousands of books about Boston. I take notes, I enter this into the database, and I put all sorts of tags on each bit of information. Nothing gets more than a paragraph. But once you put it in that way, it can all be rearranged. You can see what happened on Beacon Street from way back to the future. You can follow the women's movement. You can see how the black community progressed in Boston just by a click or two of the button. And then it just rearranges the database and provides you with just the information you're looking for.
This has been on news, and we're talking with Jim Vrabel, author of When in Boston. Jim, suppose When in Boston included, went up as far as the past year in print form. What would be some of the big events that you would have been listing in the timeline?
Oh, up to the past year. Now you get me thinking. Well, I think probably we would see a lot of demonstrations with the Black Lives Matter movement. We would see, of course, the kind of other political turmoil.
The Women's March and the March Against White Supremacy, probably.
We would see the building boom. I keep track of when buildings were built, who the architects were, how tall they are. We would see all that construction going on the seaport. We would see a lot of sports news. So the Boston teams in professional sports, we'd see all the winning streaks. That's the thing. Every category is covered, and the idea is then to allow people to search the categories, the places they're interested in. Sub-neighborhoods. You live in Mission Hill, I can tell you what happened in Mission Hill from all the way back to the present time. Not everything, but the significant moments.
It occurs to me, this kind of material and the way it's structured, it helps people get out of their silos on history in Boston. Is that something that motivated you?
Well, first, get to know their silos better, and then see how their silos are like other people's silos, and mix and match. I think people are interested first, what is it, all politics is local? A lot of history is local. So you can trace when your house was built. You can see what else was going on in the street. You can see other moments that happened. You were talking about naming streets recently and certain things that happened on certain streets. 9 Powelton Road, 1945, after Jackie Robinson had his faux tryout with the Red Sox, he went to dinner at the home of Israel Muchnick, a city councilor who had been one of the people who had championed that tryout. Now, kids at Burke High should know, when they're walking back and forth to school, Jackie Robinson ate dinner here. And he used to visit Muchnick when he played for the
Muchnick
Dodgers.
represented a part of the city in Ward 14, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right. That's an historic site. People should know that. And then they would get interested in even more history. Who was Israel Muchnick? What was going on at the time? It's just a way to tie you more deeply into the place you live.
Well, talk about finding a home for this database, because none of us is going to be around here forever, so somebody else has got to take this tool and do something. So how can they do that?
That's right. It's not doing me any good sitting at home on my computer. What I'm looking for is an institution who will take it on and not just keep it as it is in amber or slap it up on a website, but continue it. I've put everything I can figure out to put into it. Other people know as much and more and different things than I do. I want people to keep adding to it, and then people can take from it. So I'm looking for an institution who will do that, who will keep this, turn it into a site, an interactive site, and keep it going, and work with other institutions to allow them to contribute as well. So it's a growing body of Boston history that's always available to everyone.
Finally, if anyone wants to take you up on this idea, is there a way they can contact you?
Sure, I'm available at jimvrabel@juno.com. I'd be glad to talk to anybody who has any ideas, any suggestions. I've made the rounds. Everyone says someone should do it. No one so far has stepped forward.
Well, if people want to find out your history, they can read When in Boston, and also that interdisciplinary kind of history book called The People's History of the New Boston. So is there a way they can chase those down?
Sure. When in Boston was published by Northeastern University Press in 2004. A People's History of the New Boston, which traces a lot of the community activism from the 1960s and 70s. Is available at University of Massachusetts Press.
Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you, Chris.
Jim Vrabel.